all good.
Okay. Oh, wait, I can't see.
Sorry.
Oh, I can't see.
Is that better?
Wait, might help if I put my glasses on. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for attending. It's great to see you here. Thanks to Sarah and Clayton from the Little Manitou Art Gallery for this wonderful opportunity to share my presentation, Who Says We Need Fresh Air? There are over 1 million people in Canada living with environmental sensitivities. In short, environmental illness, or environmental sensitivities as it's known in Canada, is where a person has adverse reactions to everyday products that we use in our environment, such as perfume, deodorant, toothpaste, building materials, off-gassing from new materials, such as couches, clothing, furniture, and so much more. Multiple organ systems can be affected. The effects can be and are debilitating. In Who Says We Need Fresh Air, you will experience a series of comments and insights from people around the world who live with an environmental illness. Many are homeless and can't find medical care and have limited family and financial support, forcing them into a life of isolation. I myself have struggled to find adequate housing for years, desperately seeking an environmentally safe place to live. Meanwhile, watching as my Facebook friends posted about their struggles with similar issues, we were all trying to find a way to cope and survive. As an artist, I knew I could help increase awareness of our situation through quotes and images. However, because of my environmental illnesses, causing unpredictable adverse reactions to the world around me, entering buildings and the use of common artistic materials proved to be a challenge. This led me to the idea of projecting my quotes and images outside using outdoor structures as my canvas. I have been working on Who Says We Need Fresh Air since late 2016, early 2017, when I started posting online, asking if fellow sufferers would like to share their stories for my project. Many graciously provided quotes. Their story is my story. I'm currently planning to travel across Canada, bringing my message to people across the country. In order to do this, I am looking for an empty cargo type van that I can convert into a home and office, as my current vehicle is at its end of life and I currently have very limited resources. If you are interested in helping, please see my crowdfunding campaign on marieleblanc.net. I would like to thank my friend Manfred, who made a special trip from Winnipeg. Manfred graciously narrated the quotes in the presentation. I would like to thank Bruce Hughes and Blind Dog for providing me with the music End of Nowhere and Tall or Alone. Most of all, I would like to thank my friends of the environmental illness, environmental sensitivities community for their support. And I would like to thank all the people here who came here to see the presentation. Thank you again for attending, and again, thank you, Sarah and Clayton, for supporting my vision of tonight's presentation of Who Says We Need Fresh Air. Thank you to all my new friends I have met here in the past 2 days for our new friendships. And the content is heavy, however, I promise you there is a solution towards the end. Thank you very much.
On the edge of darkness at the end of my road,
In Canada, we have assisted dying, but those with MCS who want to live are denied safe housing, accessible health, dental, vision care, and safe access to food. Personal choice to wear scent never outweighs human rights. Anonymous, Canada. How many times have you been homeless because you were too sick to function? J. Mac, Ontario. It's heartbreaking when family and friends choose their scents and solvents over you. GW, Ontario, Canada. When house hunting, it took at least 2 to 3 days to plan and prepare how to bring food and water and whatever else I would need with me, because I couldn't just stop to buy something if I needed it. I also had to plan what to do if I needed to pee, because washrooms aren't accessible. LS in Ontario, Canada. Hi all, I am end-stage MCSer. I am on hospice and I'm wondering if you know anyone who has passed from MCS. I am happy to die, having been homebound for 20 years. Happy, happy, happy. No tears or fears. Just thought it should be said, after 30 years of severe reactions, I will finally be at peace. Thank you all for the support over the years. Thank you, thank you. Nancy Olson. A housing officer said to me, "We are not going to move you because you don't like a smell." Both me and my son are trapped in our home, unable to open a window, and my son coughs all day and I spin out dizzy due to neighbors' scents and smoke. But that's okay, it's just a smell, right? DJ, United Kingdom. We moved 4 times in 1 year due to cigarette smoke or mold. Leanna, Indiana. We cannot live without clean air, food, and water. Michael, Washington. I need fresh air. EMCG, Europe. I exist with MCS. I say exist now because I no longer feel like I am living. I can't is a term used every day. SF, unknown location. The impact on my life is significant. I can't work. I have to think about the places I do go. I am in fairly constant pain depending on the levels of humidity and how many chemicals are in the air. AC, USA. It impacts everything in every way, every day. GW, Northern Ontario. Society accepts that your neighbor has no right to disturb your rest with loud music, and you could even call the police over it. But when a neighbor sends unsafe substances like laundry fumes or pesticides into your home and triggers your illness, nobody is on your side. Why is music less acceptable than poisoning a sick person? KM, Ontario. I would like to live in a world in which services for the disabled are not constantly cut because we are seen as a burden. Vicky, New York City, USA. I feel like an outsider looking in on what used to be my old life, isolated, forgotten, invisible, and misunderstood. Haley, Edmonton, Alberta. To have MCS is to be chronically housing insecure with no safe government shelter to turn to when or if one is in crisis. Carrie, Los Angeles. The longer I stayed in certain rentals, the sicker I would get. Krista Upton, Edgemont, South Dakota. Housing can hurt or housing can heal. Housing is essential and hard to find. SL. This mold thing is sort of like radon. Just because you cannot see it doesn't mean it is harmless. Health is a blessing I often overlooked before I fell ill. Josephine Williams, Ohio, USA. If one wants a more humane option than all those who are ignorant, negligent, or cruel can simply say, "See, they were just crazy," which in the US is the stamp of social approval, acceptable for any and all mistreatment. Anonymous. I am currently wandering around in a town, having nowhere else to go other than a house where I have a bed in a construction site where workers work all day and I cannot remain there. I am not even welcome there. So I am desperately looking for a place. Eliana, Mexico, deceased April 2017. I'm not certain where there is a compassionate place to die. I think it's so personal now of taking our own lives alone. Is it Sweden? RGDG, Arizona, USA. Sweden is a great place if you have MCS, if you don't have kids. Fresh air and countryside just outside even Stockholm. Lots of forests, lakes, sea, and nature in general. Schools and healthcare, however, are not functioning at all, and Big Pharma has its paws everywhere, so don't expect your condition to be recognized. See in Sweden. I was misdiagnosed completely and lost work for many years because of it. GW, Manitoba, Canada. There is no ICD-10 diagnosis code for MCS and CIRS. HA in New Jersey, USA. We just have no way of predicting where the exposures will come from or what we'll be exposed to, even at home, because of what other people do and use or what comes with things we need to have in order to survive. Anonymous, Canada. I would never have thought this could happen, not just to me, but to anyone. I'm allergic to all chemicals and electronics, including unseen microwaves. Inside my body is an uncomfortable, isolating, and sometimes a scary place to be, and there is no escape. I am determined to overcome this illness. Roxanne, Edmonton, Alberta. I would need a safe home that is chemical-free and appropriate medical care that insurance would cover. AC, USA. The pain you feel when family members say it's all in your head until they see the note from your doctor. Enid S., Oakland, California, USA. Nothing, absolutely nothing in life has or can sufficiently prepare anyone for living with severe MCS and ES. What you encounter and experience is just unimaginable, inconceivable, unbelievable, and so contrary to almost everything we have been taught to believe about life. LS, Ontario. While I qualify, I'm too sick to participate. ERS, Flagstaff, Arizona, USA. For me, access to public bathrooms and public buildings is often an issue, especially when air freshener is used. MCS is a recognized disability in Canada. Scents are increasingly coming in question as an important factor in many diseases and illnesses because many are neurotoxic, carcinogenic, and/or hormone disrupting. In spite of the evidence, they keep on being added to all kinds of products and places, making access increasingly difficult for chemically sensitive individuals. The duty to accommodate has not reached an illness like multiple chemical sensitivity in public perception. PH, Regina. Unless you have a chronic illness, most people just don't get it. Friends and family are typically the ones who give you the most grief. I was fired from a job I loved because I asked management to enforce their already existing scent-free policy when new employees were hired. I then had to quit my next job because management refused to accommodate. I have been out of work for a year now, and my job prospects are looking bleak. I cannot even walk my dog around my neighborhood because of fabric softener exhaust. I now sit on my hands all day, feeling like a complete and utter failure. I feel bad for my kids as they are the ones missing out the most. Julie in Ontario, Canada. What would it be like if breathing things other people put into the air affected you as if those things were drugs or 2x4s? How would you feel? What if it happens every day? That's what breathing in fragrance, chemicals, and other pollutants is like for people with MCS or ES every day. Person with MCS, Ontario, Canada. Today I spent time at a lake close to my home. No fear and anything, no mask, no people, no smells, nothing to make me sick. It was unbelievably peaceful, which made me think we are not only robbed of our health, but of our mental health. When is the last time you had no fear that someone would pollute your space? It is sad we exist and live our lives with valid concerns and fear every second of our lives. You forget what total peace feels like. Wishing everyone good health and peace. SGC, Pennsylvania, USA. Isn't that exasperating, after going through a life-threatening hell, to be told you are having an anxiety attack? CLM. I carry 2 EpiPens, my treatment plan, a list of my known sensitivities, and a list of my possible varied symptoms with me at all times. Otherwise, I am mistakenly treated for anxiety after exposure to fragrances, chemicals, marijuana, etc. My MCS with anaphylaxis is real. Deb in Ontario, Canada. My husband had to put me in a wheelchair and wheel me outside the hospital a few years ago when I couldn't breathe or stand upright any longer because of synthetic vanilla fragrance in the blue tourniquet that the staff was using on me. SF, Alberta. The chemicals in fragrances and other things can cause neurological damage that affects a person's ability to speak and function, just like a poison does. Advising a person who is being poisoned to remain in a possibly life-threatening situation and to speak nicely to someone who is poisoning them when what they desperately need is to get away to fresh air or even to the hospital is simply not going to end well. LS in Ontario, Canada. When I experience people with fragrance or people who smoke heavily, it's like I have a steel band tightening around my head. If I get out of the situation, I'm fine after a while, but if I don't, I end up with a migraine. M. Smith, Manitoba. I want to be able to think clearly and not have invisible toxic molecules send me over cliffs when my parachute is full of holes. Person with MCS, Ontario. Sometimes I wonder if breathing through a mask is more harmful than without one. Any thoughts? Anonymous, Quebec, Canada. Chemicals off other people have affected me to the degree that I've become sick and complained so much I've lost business. People who aren't affected just don't believe me. NL, Manitoba. I worked in a printing company for 18 years. I was in contact with ink, dilutant, varnish, and solvent, cleaning items. I became sick when I was preparing ink for silkscreen. Gregor Lipis, Slovenia. I cannot go down any aisles with cleaners and chemicals. AC, USA. The only way to escape being forced to inhale the fumes coming out of other people's laundry vents, which sickens us severely, is to move to a secluded house in the country. Yet who can afford that when lack of workplace accommodation has stolen our incomes? Apartment life slowly kills us, but most of us have no other choice. KM, Ontario. I cannot go out in public safely because synthetic fragrance on people's clothing from laundry products causes breathing difficulties, and it's on everyone now. I can't imagine what it feels like to walk down the street without worrying. Lisa H., London, United Kingdom. I can never sustain the improvement in functional ability due to the unavoidable exposures to pesticides, scent, and so on. FP, Ontario. I've just gone 2 years without paying rent. I barter for living space by performing housekeeping and other work. Becoming sensitive due to mold exposure and genetic limitations regarding detox has ended my career. Organic Brian in Oregon, USA. If one runs out of personal resources and has diseases that require very specialized housing and care, and euthanasia is no option either, what happens to them? Lost in America, deceased in 2017. Mold poisoning took me to the brink of death. I also developed severe MCS from it. What it takes to heal is unthinkable for a regular person, yet I will do whatever it takes because I want nothing more than to heal and live life to the fullest again. So I am living out in nature with almost nothing, and I need to avoid the worst toxins that can take me down for weeks at a time, only so that my body can detox, my body can heal. Sarah T., Portugal. I have moved 73 times by now and live in a very unstable housing situation where I will be homeless in 2 weeks again. I have gotten worse and worse the last 3 weeks. What is so absurd about this is that I was for 2 days in a safe place with a loving family, and I felt so much better in only hours. Eliana, Mexico, deceased April 2017. There was a phone mast less than 50 meters away from my house on a building, which made me seriously ill over time. I was forced to become homeless and live in a tent to deal with the symptoms. Kerry Robbins, Staffordshire, England. I have learned that no man is his own rock. AC, USA. I can't do everything that needs to be done to be healthy without help. GW, Northern Ontario. If I had a magic wand, I'd be healthy and able to work again and not be stuck in my condo all the time with air cleaners. Janet, USA. Last summer, I was on the run in my car, to and fro, to escape neighborhood herbicide spraying. I had some homes, but I couldn't stay at them. ELB, New York. Imagine being given a drug that lasts for 10 years, one that makes you feel like you have the flu and had had too much to drink. Linda, Canada. Imagine too that little doses of similar drugs are in everything you have to buy, eat, use for survival, are in the air you breathe, the water you drink, the clothes and the shoes you wear. Linda, Canada. Imagine no one believes you and no one will help you find a place free of these drugs. How would you feel? What would you do? Linda, Canada. Ignorance is only bliss until you are on the receiving end of it. Roberta, Edmonton, Alberta. If I could get a change of scenery and some fresh air, it might help. But it's as if I'm in a slightly glorified jail cell here, in solitary confinement, without even a TV. Not that I want a TV, but I don't think anyone I know could survive this. Linda, Canada. A living hell that I would not have thought possible to live through. It has made me mentally strong, but resentful to those who take for granted their health and abuse it. I believe they should be thankful for their blessing and help others who aren't so lucky in life's lottery. Amanda A., Scotland. Even if an actual home is accessible and works for my MCS air quality needs, I have had to flee at 2 different times from one home of 9 years and another home of 2.5 years, and then threatened with homelessness due to ignorant neighbors refusing to respect no toxic spray accommodations are needed to keep me healthy. SH in Rhode Island, USA. I have been looking for safe housing for at least 5 years. It doesn't exist, especially for those of us barely surviving in abject poverty. But tell me again that people on social assistance are the problem. JMac, Ontario. It's a crime, and nobody should have to go through what we are all going through. KQB, California. I can no longer visit my friends in their homes and have dinner with them. I haven't been in my best friend's house in 9 years. H in Canada. It's also a world of being disbelieved and misunderstood. DI, County Galway, Ireland. I wish I had not internalized the ableism I see each day. Vicky, New York City, USA. I have Lyme, thyroid disease, allergies, chemical sensitivities, and endometriosis. I was misdiagnosed many times. Vicky, New York, USA. Our human rights only exist on paper. I'm sick of this shit. J. Mac, Ontario. Most of all, I would like to have value. Vicky, New York City, USA. Somebody told me that they only wore a little perfume. I replied, sure, as long as you don't mind a little rat's poison in your coffee, as she was just about to take a sip. Teresa, Canada. A healthy place to live, more help, medical coverage cutbacks restored, simple consideration, common courtesy, and decency go a long way. GW, Northern Ontario. It's a full-time job to try and find housing for an MCS sufferer. It's a full-time job to stay well for an MCS sufferer. A full-time job is required to fund the complications of this illness. It's impossible to have 3 full-time jobs. RRD, Maryland, USA. Exhausting, GW, Northern Ontario. I became ill in 2012 and never got better. I had to stop working at the age of 44 and go on disability. I never dreamed that something as simple as washing my hair could become so difficult, or that going grocery shopping could land me in bed for a week. I feel like a 95-year-old masquerading as 49. LF, Ontario, Canada. I was on oxygen until my insurance wouldn't cover it anymore. Thankfully, I've survived without it. Christine, California, USA. Have so much on my mind as I face homelessness. I wish I could assume I'd remember something like this, but I'm forgetting so much other than basic food and housing right now. CS, USA. I'm not safe outside or in buildings other than my home, so eviction is a death knell. I really don't want to die, but I do need to live without the constant threat of homelessness and or the progression of my disease. I don't have much left to lose. Anonymous, Canada. The other day I fell asleep in a restaurant. Waiters woke me up asking if they should call the ambulance. I said no, just tired. I then continued to walk and walk with nowhere to sleep. So I paid an expensive hotel I could tolerate with my credit card, just to be able to rest for a while. This is hell on earth. EH, Mexico. Deceased, April 2017. My life was robbed from me. Jenny S., Kansas, Missouri. When we have a socially inconvenient disability like MCS and ES, not only do we require physical recovery time from exposures, we also need discouragement recovery time, as being assaulted over and over again is both physically and emotionally exhausting. Linda, Canada. I would like to live in a world in which services for the disabled are not constantly cut because we are seen as a burden. Vicky, New York City, USA. Chemically sensitive lives matter. Vapor Trails Eva from Michigan. Pollutants mess with our brains. I don't know about you, but I did not give consent to polluters to mess with my brain. It's another form of rape. Anonymous, Canada. I can never sustain the improvement in functional ability due to the unavoidable exposures to pesticides, scent, and so on. FP, Ontario. My mother has dementia. Because of the chemicals in her home, I rarely visit her. When I do, it can take days to feel better. I love her and miss her very much. H, in Canada. Even when we take all the precautions we can, we are subjected to toxic chemicals and other harmful substances from everywhere, because health-harming levels are currently allowed in virtually all everyday products and materials. Anonymous, Ontario, Canada. That's how much control most of us don't have, over the exposures that disable us. Linda, Ontario. For me, MCS feels like navigating around landmines ready to wreak havoc in my day. No matter how positive I try to start my day, there's that feeling I succumb to when fragrance wafts under my nose that I am not made for this world. How can others go cheerfully about their normal lives when I am crippled by it? MR, location unknown. I was informed that the government of Manitoba insisted that doctors not be allowed to diagnose MCS in Manitoba. GW, Canada. Clean air is sacred. Jane, South Carolina, USA. Yep, the normals don't understand and often uselessly suggest, can't you just go out for a while? J. Mac, Ontario. MCS does not have a diagnosis code, and so I cannot say what is my official diagnosis. Although my doctor has said I have MCS, it is not a recognized diagnosis. HANJ, USA. I found out information about the illness from a pain specialist that practices in British Columbia. Despite having paperwork, information sheets, and test results, my family doctor refused to acknowledge the diagnosis, so I was never given treatment or even medical advice on how to deal with it. Most of the time, unfortunately, I am bedbound. It's hard to stay positive some days, but I try to think of how lucky I am to have a caregiver and that I am no longer living in poverty as a single disabled person. MT, Manitou, Pennsylvania. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in 1995 and mycotoxicosis, CIRS, in 2001 after a severe and long-term stachybotrys and endotoxin exposure. The book of my life is written in blurry lines. It is not finished. Jessica Grossman, Portland, Oregon. The longer I stayed in certain rentals, the sicker I would get. My pain levels were level 8 to 10 almost all the time. I could not even be on the computer anymore, so I tried to cope with the pain and exhaustion, mostly by watching TV. Krista Upton, Edgemont, South Dakota. I feel like I'm living a fraction of my life in a separate world where I have suddenly discovered boredom and frustration. It's a world of beds and couches, reclining chairs and deck chairs, wheelchairs, blankets, and pillows. It's a world of supplements, diets, ineffective medications, and endless tried treatments. It's also a world of being disbelieved and misunderstood. Di, County Galway, Ireland. I'm sick to the point of disabled by this. Would they tell someone with a flu to just go hang in the park? 'Cause hi, everywhere else is exposure central, so I don't know what else they mean by out. J. Mac, Ontario. MCS is a true disability that no one understands. Michael, Washington, USA. There is no international classification of diseases, ICD, code in America for the health conditions of environmental illness. So the ICD-9 code 989.9, intolerance to other substances, non-specified, is often used as a diagnosis. MCS is explicitly identified in the ICD codes of several European countries, and actions are underway to recognize it in the ICD codes of all European countries. HA in New Jersey, USA. What I don't have enough money for is buying all organic food and the types of food that would help me heal better. Krista Upton, Edgemont, South Dakota. The hardest part of the toxic mold phase of life has been the loneliness. Josephine Williams, Ohio, USA. Pesticides are an unnecessary gross poisoning of humanity and the environment without our informed consent. Hundreds of people are suffering from and reporting health effects from them and being completely ignored. Their safety has not been studied properly or extensively, resulting in a mass population experiment on all of us, including the most vulnerable, our children. AM, British Columbia. Everyday chemical exposures to things like pesticides, fragrances, laundry products, air fresheners, asphalt, etc. can leave me feeling as if I am quite literally being sucked into quicksand, and it feels like living in sludge, like my brain is immersed in sludge, like my body is trying to move through sludge. L, Ontario, Canada. Laundry exhaust turned me into a chemical refugee, respecting no fence, invading, decimating my brain, even though I have explained my pain. My neighbors choose to use, emanating ruthless exhaust and residues. Bren, Georgia. As difficult as it is to have a devastating invisible illness like MCS, the fact that so many suffer the loss of normalcy and the indignation of skepticism from family and friends make this condition dreadfully grim. TP, USA. I am no longer the same person. My life is unrecognizable. PJ. If one runs out of personal resources and has diseases that require very specialized housing and care, and euthanasia is no option either, what happens to them? LS, Lost in America. Deceased 2017. We are building a custom healthy home, not by choice, but for me to avoid daily anaphylaxis. It shouldn't be this hard to just stay alive. Leanna, Indiana. Green and healthy homes should not be a luxury of wealth and privilege, but should be a basic necessity to be afforded by all. MLC, Rhode Island. Living with MCS is tough. One of the major effects MCS has had is keeping us from being able to move. We put so much into making our current house safe that we feel stuck. In order to move and know we won't be going from the frying pan into the fire, we must build a house. That is very hard to do when you are not well and funds are limited. We live in tornado country, so parking a green modular home on a piece of land will not work for us. Moving far away from tornado country, is not practical for many reasons. It is very hard to know that you can't just do what normal people do without potential severe repercussions. Anonymous. I am safe and secure in our owned house when so many with ME struggle to keep a roof over their head. Having been in the situation of struggling to keep a roof over my head, my heart breaks when I hear the stories of those still in that predicament. Shelley M., Alberta, Canada. Living with MCS for over 20 years means affordable, accessible, green housing with good air quality has been a constant struggle in finding and keeping once found. Susan, Rhode Island. I had to move 2,000 miles to a region with less pesticide applications to crops and less moisture because mold is what triggered my MCS. Even in a much better climate, I continued to decline until life-threatening symptoms came more and more often. We finally had to build a low-tox house from scratch. Krista Upton, Edgemont, South Dakota. Living with MCS has been very tough for our whole family. My middle son, age 27, and I both have MCS and mold illness. We lived in a house with mold, and it's made us both very ill and confined to home, recliner, and bed almost 24/7 with my beloved hubby as our carer. Karen from South Australia. Winter. Winter hurts me inside. J. Mac, Ontario. Only people who are not wearing perfumes, colognes, spray deodorants, and other scented products can enter our home. Karen from South Australia. I keep industrial fans on my porches to blow the scents and smoke back to them. Jane, South Carolina, USA. I feel like a pinball. Never know when or where I will be whacked. Powerless. JCC. Safety. When my brain is whacked out, I make dangerous mistakes like randomly crossing the street. I tend to stick with residential and alley routes, but still walking into traffic is a good way to really get whacked. Also, depending on the day, the brain fog confusion can be instant or happen while I am trying to figure out socks and keys. Spontaneity was never my forte, and now it's just impossible. LOL. J. Mac, Ontario. Frustration is knowing more about environmental illnesses than most primary care physicians. Sherry, Alabama, USA. I have learned that I need not take responsibility for things that are not my fault. Krista Upton, Edgemont, South Dakota. I find it's a full-time job to keep myself healthy enough to take care of myself and sometimes have to ask family for help. Clara, Manitoba. Everything we buy has to be aired out for at least a couple of weeks or washed multiple times in vinegar and bicarb soda to remove the chemicals and toxins before being used. Karen from South Australia. The property management company just sent a man over to visually inspect for mold. He of course found everything to be fine and saw no visible mold. How convenient. Seriously? I know more about mold than he did, and he performed no mold testing. You can't see the mold in the wall behind the giant bathroom mirror. NS, Georgia. Dental, eye, and medical appointments oftentimes make me ill. The environments in these places of health and healing are toxic. I can't breathe or effectively communicate without wearing a carbon-filtered mask. Connie, West Virginia, USA. I just visited a family who lives in a house with the conditions I need. The son is a drug dealer. The wife traffics with animals in the black market. What an ironic world. Eliana, Mexico. Deceased April 2017. My world keeps getting smaller and smaller. I feel like I'm on a shrinking ice floe while the rest of the world is a distant shore. LF, Toronto, Canada. I don't think people know what I've been through to survive and what I'm still going through to try to survive. My option is anything but an easy way out. I'm horrified this is my option. And if it must be, I'd like people to know what inhumane options were left to choose from. What a freaking nightmare. LS, Lost in America. Deceased, 2017. Loretta Montoya, who messaged me on June 2nd. She wrote, I have MCS, diagnosed 2 months ago. Have gone to homelessness in that time as I cannot tolerate much of anything. My home was abated, but the mold eliminator used is a chemical I am unable to tolerate. I get very sick when I try to go inside my home. I am desperate for a place to live or share that is MCS, EI friendly and free of toxins and molds. I have nowhere to turn. Please. Deceased. AH, USA. Have so much on my mind as I face homelessness. I wish I could assume I'd remember something like this, but I'm forgetting so much other than basic food and housing right now. CS, USA. I can no longer attend church because perfumes give me migraines that can last for days afterwards. Claudia R., Richmond, Virginia. Toxic and wireless assaults are so common, and we have no recourse or supports, and we're expected to stay nice while begging for clean air and safe housing, etc. because invisible assaults against people with invisible disabilities are legal, and toxic products are legal, and unsafe levels of wireless radiation are legal. Linda, Canada. If everyone could put their devices in airplane mode most of the time in public and check in periodically, then people with EHS disabilities can freely enjoy public spaces. Vibrate mode still emits painful microwave signals. Similar to smoking, reducing toxins can help everyone. I wish there wasn't Wi-Fi in libraries, museums, on buses, planes, or trains. I used to be able to travel, but the RF Wi-Fi signals in the microwave range are painful. Please keep cell towers away from parks and beaches so we can enjoy these places too. Shelley. We need to keep cell towers away from densely populated areas, daycares, and schools to minimize signals while effectively delivering them to the people and businesses that need them the most. Environmentally friendly white spaces without Wi-Fi signals in the microwave range would allow EHS disabled people to be integrated in communities, experience equity and accessibility. Keeping the ALARA principle in mind will help these disabled people to manage their intolerable symptoms of microwave radiation sickness. Shelley. As difficult as it is to have a devastating invisible illness like MCS, the fact that so many often suffer the loss of normalcy and the indignation of skepticism from family and friends make this condition dreadfully grim. TP, USA. Actually, I had a good experience with next-door apartment neighbors burning incense 24/7, but not until I actually went to the DA's office and explained my problem. A letter from the DA's office solved the problem, but the landlord was not real happy. He then kicked the neighbors out and moved in someone who was easy to get along with. Debbie. From global nomad artist to housebound, chronically ill and disabled. I visited Spain to get my flat sold, and environmental exposure left me chemically injured. My degree of MCS is very high, and no mask protects me from airborne chemicals. My body is destroyed with untreated conditions. I am getting neurological damage, and my primal instinct is shutting down after repeated homelessness and family abuse. If I could get back to where I was, I could have a more dignified life and get private treatment, but I have lost all hope and stopped asking for help. Stuck in some town in deep Spain. It is so absurd to be driven to suicide just because there are no damn four walls with no new paints, no leaks, and no formaldehyde. Eliana, Mexico. Deceased April 2017. I became seriously ill with ME/MCS 5 years ago. I could no longer work. My disability claim was rejected by the insurance company, and I had to hire a lawyer to fight them. I went through all my savings. Every day is a struggle, physically, emotionally, and financially. LF, Ontario, Canada. Could lack of housing be a super valid reason to end your life? I once said I would like to live, but I have to have a place to do so. People around me do not get that. Eliana, Mexico. Deceased April 2017. I am 99.9 hopeless too. Today I am where I do not want to be and have nowhere else to go. It is a prison, a body prison. A housing prison. Eliana, Mexico. Deceased April 2017. I'm grieving the life I once had. Sherry, Alabama, USA. How strong does someone need to be to go through this again? I just don't understand the world. Eliana, Mexico. Deceased, April 2017. I wonder if there was a hospital in Holland, as example, would the workers be more compassionate? LS, no location unless lost in America. Deceased, 2017. I'm not certain where there is a compassionate place to die. I think it's so personal now of taking our own lives alone. Is it Sweden? RGDG, USA, Arizona. I know a lot of people in my situation with this illness or disability who are homeless or dead, and I am neither one of those yet, so just have to focus on the positive. GW, Manitoba. I think we're at the point where society is beginning to see that these things are causing symptoms. And even if we cannot figure out the mechanism how this is happening, who cares? People have known for years that if you punch somebody in the face, it's going to hurt them. Do you really need to analyze how the injury happens and why? This is obvious. Allison Johnson, MCS author, filmmaker. This is not the way we want to go, to put the responsibility for breathing clean air on the individual instead of on the state. Instead, the state or central government can be much more effective at providing clean air and water to rich and poor residents alike through passage and enforcement of adequate laws. Barbara Hoffman of Heinrich Heine University in Düsseldorf, Germany. Environmental Health Perspectives. These people need safe housing. It is medically necessary. However, there are very few affordable homes in Canada that have been designed specifically for people with environmental sensitivities. And I don't know of any public funds that will assist these folks to make or retrofit a home so that they can live healthy, full lives. Governments at all levels need to recognize this glaring failure of housing, social, and health policy and fix it. The Center for Equality Rights in Accommodation, CERA, C-E-R-A.
Going down the dusty Rust Belt Rapids Road, where passion runs deep as an old coal mine. This time ship